أخي صبرا على ألم الفراق.
Can I then ask Sister Yvonne, inshallah, to come forward and speak about Aafia Siddiqui. For those of you who don't know the case of Aafia Siddiqui, it's an extremely important case. It's a case of a Pakistani woman who had disappeared in the dungeons of Bagram, and Sister Yvonne Ridley has begun a project that has not stopped yet, in which she's trying to find out the truth of what happened to this poor woman who is now suffering from all sorts of psychological problems and difficulties in a prison cell in the United States of America. So, Sister Yvonne Ridley, Jazakallah khair.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Brothers, sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum. It is a year now since I spoke to you about Dr Aafia Siddiqui, but 12 months on, I'm sad to report our sister is still in the hands of her abusers. 12 months on, she is still waiting for justice. And 12 months on, the lies continue to pour forth from the press unit of the Pentagon. But on a positive note, it is with great confidence that I can stand here and tell you the circumstances surrounding the shooting of Dr Aafia Siddiqui, as told by the US, are a complete tissue of lies. As a journalist, I can only deal in facts, and so I, along with filmmaker Hassan al-Banagani, went to see for ourselves the prison cell where Dr Aafia was held, and to speak to those who held her in this cell where she was shot. The journey through the Khyber Pass and into Afghanistan was hazardous, and our time was very challenging indeed. But it was the journey to Ghazni which nearly cost us our lives, as we literally drove into a firefight between the Afghan police and the Taliban. Once my former captors realised we were friends and not foe, and were informed of our mission, they apologised and said the remainder of our journey would not be hindered, which was quite comforting. When we arrived in Ghazni, we spoke to the police, the governor, the head of counter-terrorism, and it was quite clear from the eyewitnesses who were in the room at the time of the shooting that Aafia did not seize any gun. She did not try and pick up an assault rifle. She did not try and attack any one of the dozen or so American soldiers and FBI agents who tumbled into the cell that day in July. Prosecutors in America accuse Aafia of having ties to Al-Qaeda and say she grabbed this M4 rifle. And as I say, the people that I have spoken to on the record, on film which I have now handed over to Aafia's defence team, say she never even touched the gun. It's also quite clear to me that had it not been for the quick actions and the insistence of the Afghan police to get her to a local hospital, she would have bled to death. How convenient that would have been. I also established that the iconic photograph of Aafia Siddiqui slumped to one side was not taken after she had been shot, but it was actually taken on the day of her arrest. So what organisation would ever send anyone out on a mission in that sort of state to wreak carnage and havoc? It is quite obvious by looking at that picture, this is a woman in pain and in suffering. Time after time, the facts that were given to us from the US just did not stack up. As I said, we've now handed the film over to her new legal team, and there is more information which I can't share with you at the moment, but it will prove again that the FBI and other intelligence agencies have lied about the case around Aafia. I may even be asked to give evidence at her trial in October. I need you all to pray for justice because the odds are still stacked against her. The judge has set aside a week for the trial, which will only focus on those 2-3 minutes in the prison cell in Ghazni. He has made it quite clear he is not at all interested in where Aafia spent the last 5 or 6 years. He couldn't care less that she has been held in Bagram, confirming all our suspicions since Moazzam first raised them in his book Enemy Combatant. And we do know that she was held in Bagram now, after an irrefutable eyewitness account given by our dear brother here today, Binyam Mohammed. Binyam watched my film In Search of Prisoner 650, and afterwards he said, I know who 650 is. She is Dr Aafia Siddiqui. I called Colonel Mark Wright, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wright in the Pentagon press office, who consistently refuses to tell me, by the way, where America holds its female enemy combatants. This is the man who denied the existence of women in Bagram until Lord Nazir Ahmed, here today, began challenging the authorities. I told the Lieutenant Colonel of this new development, yet another eyewitness account, but this one stronger and more convincing than any other. He called me back and he insisted Dr Aafia Siddiqui was not held in Bagram, and he sounded quite exasperated with my continual question and insistence that she was. And I said, Mark, you tell me who I should believe, because the information was given to me by Binyam Mohammed, a man who was tortured for 7 years because he refused to lie, because he refused to sign a false declaration. Do I believe him or do I believe you, representing an organisation which took us into an illegal war in Iraq, claiming that there were weapons of mass destruction there? It's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it, who you believe? But the Pentagon press office is in complete denial, just like the media team in Bagram. They wouldn't even come and meet me when I paid a surprise visit to the heavily fortified base in Bagram. Moazzam must get the feeling I'm following him around, because last May I was in Guantanamo, but only for a few days. Bagram, the whole place is guarded on the outside by Afghan military. There's not a single American in sight. And when I arrived asking to speak to the media team, I was refused and kept at the gate. What media team doesn't want to meet the press? You have to ask, what are they hiding in Bagram?